What if the most powerful force in modern football wasn't a billionaire or a sovereign fund, but an energy drink? What started as a banned can of sugar water is now a global empire of clubs, scouts, and hidden pipelines. From Brazil to Salzburg, from Leipzig to New York, Red Bull isn't just sponsoring the game, they're building it, controlling it, profiting from it. Because behind the wings is a machine that moves talent like chess pieces, bypasses UEFA rules, and turns football into a vertical monopoly. And the craziest part? They're just getting started. How did Red Bull go from being banned in Germany to owning the future of football? In 1987, an Austrian toothpaste marketer named Dietrich Mateschitz launched an unusual drink called Red Bull. It was based on a Thai formula meant to cure jet lag. But Mateschitz didn't just sell an energy drink. He created a new market from scratch, and with it, a new kind of company. A company that didn't just advertise through sport, but became sport. This wasn't just a soft drink brand, it was a performance myth. You weren't buying sugar and caffeine, you were buying flight, speed, impact, and football would become its most powerful illusion yet. Back then, Red Bull had zero credibility in football, no history, no culture. When they bought SV Austria Salzburg in 2005, they erased the club's name, its colors, its badge. It sparked fan boycotts across the country because it wasn't just a takeover, it was erasure. Red Bull didn't just rebrand the club, they literally rewrote its founding date from 1933 to 2005. As if football history could be deleted with a logo. But the outrage didn't stop them. They kept expanding. Leipzig in Germany, Bragantino in Brazil, New York, Ghana. Red Bull wasn't just building clubs, they were building a system. So how did a drink company become one of the most powerful forces in global football? And what happens when that power rewrites the rules of competition itself? Red Bull didn't just want a football team, they wanted football to serve the brand. From energy drink to energy empire, they built a company where marketing is the product, and sport was their most powerful weapon. They didn't buy TV ads. They bought the cameras, the stadiums, the teams. And in 2023, they made an even bolder move. They hired Jurgen Klopp. Not to coach a team, but to oversee the sporting identity across all Red Bull clubs. From Leipzig to New York, his style became the template. This wasn't branding, it was a football philosophy, franchised across continents. Red Bull doesn't manufacture its own drink. Production? Outsourced. Bottling? Outsourced. Logistics? Outsourced. Because Red Bull isn't a beverage company, it's a media company, owning athletes, competitions, and content, from Formula One to cliff diving to Champions League nights. This wasn't sponsorship, it was story control. Red Bull didn't just appear in sports stories, they created them and filmed them on their terms. They call it story performing. You don't drink Red Bull to watch action, you drink it to feel like the action. And in football, the illusion worked. The brand was everywhere, but the lines between team and product, gone. Are you rooting for Leipzig or for a soft drink with a scouting department? By 2023, Red Bull controlled 5 clubs across 3 continents, each one a testing lab, a marketing funnel, a stepping stone for talent. They weren't playing the game, they were rewriting the business model. But what happens when one of those clubs, a team built in a lab, starts winning at the highest level. In 2009, Red Bull made their boldest move yet. They didn't just buy a club, they created one from scratch. RB Leipzig. Not an old badge, not a historic ground, but a brand new football machine engineered to climb the German pyramid, and they did, from the 5th division to the Bundesliga in just 7 years. No miracle runs, no fan-funded fairy tales, just Red Bull money, Red Bull scouting, Red Bull control. Officially, RB doesn't stand for Red Bull. It stands for Rasenball Sport. Literally, lawn ball sport. Because German law bans corporate names and club titles. So Red Bull invented a fake word to sneak their initials past the rulebook. From the outside, Leipzig looked like a fairy tale. Young talent, fast football, smart scouting. But inside, it was a factory. Players bought low, developed fast, sold high. And every part of that pipeline, the feeder clubs, the scouts, even the agents, reported back to Red Bull HQ. Traditional fans saw it for what it was, a billboard with boots. Leipzig became the most hated club in Germany, booed by ultras, boycotted by rivals. Because this wasn't football, it was franchising. And yet, it worked. They cracked the code. Cheap talent, tactical discipline, total vertical control. By 2020, RB Leipzig were in the Champions League semifinals. Not bad for a team that didn't exist 11 years earlier. But their success wasn't just about football. It was about power. Because behind the rise of Leipzig is a system more dangerous than anyone imagined. On paper, Red Bull's clubs look separate. Different names, different leagues, different continents. But behind the curtain, they operate like one machine. Scouts share data. Coaches rotate between clubs. Players are bought low in one team and sold high from another. This isn't competition, it's choreography. Leipzig and Salzburg once tried to register for the same UEFA tournament. That's illegal. UEFA doesn't allow two clubs with the same owner. So what did Red Bull do? Salzburg claimed that Red Bull had completely withdrawn control. Their CEO stepped down and was immediately rehired as a consultant. Red Bull even stripped their logos and colors from Salzburg's badge, but only in Europe. Domestically, the branding stayed, the control stayed. Two clubs, one puppet master, and UEFA let them both compete. And this wasn't an exception, it became the playbook. Salzburg turned into the test lab, scouting, training, developing raw talent, then funneling it to Leipzig for profit. And when other clubs raised the alarm, UEFA shrugged, because technically no rules were broken. Red Bull had done it. They built a vertically integrated empire, one that used UEFA's own laws against them. And the regulators? They didn't just look away, they bent the rules to make it work. From Ghana to Brazil to Germany, every piece now in place. Players, scouts, sponsorships, media rights, all of it under one roof. So what happens when this empire isn't just tolerated, but actively rewarded? In 2017, RB Leipzig qualified for the Champions League. It should have triggered a regulatory nightmare. UEFA rules are crystal clear. No two clubs under common control can compete in the same tournament. And yet, that season, Leipzig and Salzburg both played. No punishments, no sanctions. Why? UEFA's official justification? Separation of influence. They claimed Red Bull no longer controlled Salzburg, but Red Bull still paid the staff, still funded the operations, still negotiated player transfers between the two clubs. They didn't separate control, they separated perception. This wasn't a one-off oversight. It was the moment UEFA quietly admitted defeat. Their rules weren't built for this. They couldn't define influence, couldn't trace control through consultants, shell companies, or third-party sponsors. Red Bull didn't just outplay the system, they reprogrammed it. And UEFA? the supposed guardians of fair play, chose to look away. Why? Because Red Bull offered something better than integrity, money, global markets. A brand that made football look modern, young, profitable. Red Bull wasn't just playing in Europe. They were now playing Europe itself. The brand became untouchable, not in spite of UEFA, but because of them. So what happens when this blueprint gets replicated in other countries with even less oversight? Red Bull didn't stop with Europe. They scaled the blueprint globally. In Brazil, they bought Club Atlético Bragantino. In Ghana, they set up a youth academy. In New York, they purchased the Metro Stars, then rebranded them the Red Bulls. Same tactics, same playbook. But now, it was a cross-continental pipeline, one that moved players like products. This wasn't just smart scouting, it was vertical integration. A player could start in Ghana, move to Brazil, then jump to Austria or Germany, all within the Red Bull system. No middlemen, no bidding wars, just internal promotion, up a corporate-owned ladder. In some cases, transfer fees were negotiated between Red Bull employees, one acting as a buyer, the other as the seller. No competition, no market price, just internal asset movement, hidden behind football's transfer facade. But here's the dark truth. Players inside this system often had little control. Their contracts owned by the same corporate umbrella. Career paths became assembly lines. If Red Bull wanted you in Salzburg, you went. If not, you disappeared into the machine. Red Bull wasn't just building clubs. They were colonizing careers, one promising teenager at a time. This wasn't just multi-club ownership. It was multi-continent dominance, an empire disguised as opportunity. But there's one place even Red Bull hasn't conquered yet. A league where power, politics, and profit collide. In the most chaotic way possible, Saudi Arabia. For all of Red Bull's dominance, there's one thing they couldn't manufacture: authenticity. In Germany, fans of traditional clubs viewed RB Leipzig as a plastic product, a soulless clone designed to win, not to belong. And unlike England or Spain, Germany had a weapon, the 50+1 rule, a regulation that prevents outside companies from outright controlling clubs. But Red Bull found a way around it. They formed a club with only a hand-picked handful of members, just enough to meet the rule. In spirit, not in truth. Fans couldn't vote, couldn't question, couldn't stop the machine. When Leipzig first applied to the German league system, they were rejected. Not for finances, not for legal issues, but for having no sporting director, no members, no youth system, just branding, just ambition. They were told to come back when they looked less like a marketing campaign and more like a football club. Even with billions and a global network, Red Bull couldn't buy tradition. They could clone success, but they couldn't replicate soul. Because no matter how powerful a cartel becomes, football fans still hold one weapon: memory. So Red Bull adapted. They built academies, signed local talent, tried to blend legitimacy with domination. But while Red Bull was fine-tuning their empire, another cartel was rising, one with deeper pockets, closer ties, and the full blessing of football's governing bodies. Because the Saudi playbook? It wasn't just about ownership, it was about rewriting the game itself. Red Bull didn't just change one league, they created a template, a multi-club empire, a media monopoly, a scouting machine. Packaged as sport, executed like Silicon Valley. Now, that blueprint has gone viral. Private equity firms are buying clubs in bundles. American sports groups want Champions League access. And Saudi Arabia? They're not playing catch-up. They're rewriting the game entirely. PIF owns Newcastle United. They're investing in French, Saudi, and South American clubs. And their strategy makes Red Bull look subtle. No rebranding, no cartoon logos, just financial gravity pulling the game eastward. In 2023, Saudi Arabia outspent every league on earth, even the Premier League. They didn't just buy stars, they launched a full takeover. Stadiums, streaming rights, sponsorships, and influence inside FIFA itself. Red Bull once felt like the final boss, a brand that conquered football with sugar and marketing. But now, they might have just been the prototype, the proof of concept for something even bigger, even harder to stop. Because if Red Bull hijacked European football, Saudi Arabia might be hijacking football itself. From transfers to tournaments to the World Cup, the new cartel isn't hiding, it's hosting.